You're in the place where mysteries and the missing meet, where conspiracies lurk around every corner. Welcome to the Deep, Dark Truth.
Welcome back to the Deep, Dark Truth. I'm Mo.
I'm Chip.
And I'm Mikey.
And today we are talking about our local cryptids.
They want to meet you.
Everything since the first episode has been culminating to us talking about our local cryptids.
Long before the first episode, since this was but a twinkle in our eyes.
So, for those who don't know, me and Mikey are from Michigan. We're from the Detroit suburbs, and Chip is from Arizona.
I am from New York. I grew up in Arizona.
Okay.
Okay.
Very particular.
I will not claim Arizona as my birthland. You cannot make me.
I was just going to say that I think Arizona is the most traveled to state that I have been to besides Michigan.
That can't be.
It's real. He's been to Phoenix a lot.
And Tucson.
So we're going to be talking about our local cryptids. Me and Mikey are both going to talk about some cryptids from Michigan, and Chip is going to talk about some cryptids from Arizona. So I will start, and I'm going to start with the Michigan Dogman. Chip, you are not from here. When I say Michigan Dogman, what do you think?
Werewolves?
Good. You have a good ear. So Detroit's French history has given us stories of the loup-garou, their French word for werewolf. And in the 1883 book of Legends et les Détois, there was a story of a man who desperately wanted to marry a young woman, but she was studying to become a nun. The man became a loup-garou to carry her off, but he was turned into stone in the garden of the church. In another story, a loup-garou carried off a young bride on her wedding day, and her devastated fiancé spent the rest of his life tracking down the werewolf to kill it. So the first recorded sighting of the quote-unquote Michigan Dogman was over 100 years ago in 1887, which is only 5 years after this book of legends was written. Two lumberjacks witnessed a bipedal creature in the woods that resembled a man that had a dog's head. Some said that the dog man, in fact, was not a dog, but rather half wolf. Whenever the dog man or werewolf howled, it sounded like there was a human scream behind it, which fueled the rumors. In 1937, Robert Fortney was attacked by 5 wild dogs and claimed that one of the said dogs were on 2 legs. The Michigan Dogman is said to be tied to Native American tribes and Native American legends in the area. In 1987, a radio DJ in Traverse City made a song called Legend for April Fool's Day. What he did not expect was for callers to swarm the phones and inform him that the Michigan Dogman was no joke. They told him all about different sightings that they had seen and that the legends had surrounded the area, especially around the Manistee National Forest for 100 years now. People started telling him of their stories. Soon the legend spread much further than the northwestern Lower Peninsula, and natives and others were placing pieces of the puzzle together. Cryptids similar to the Dogman have been reported in other areas in the Midwest as well. In the book, The Beast of Bray Road, the author compares the beast with the Michigan Dogman.
Interesting.
So it's kind of what you expected, Chip?
We're always kidnapping women. This is pretty standard.
Yeah.
There's allegedly been more sightings of the Michigan Dogman than there has been of Bigfoot.
I would believe that.
I would too. We have so many cryptids in Michigan. Very big hunting state. And I feel like the legends have it's just a thing you hear about. And so if you see something out the corner of your eye and it doesn't seem like something you've seen before, you don't think Bigfoot here. You instantly think Michigan Dogman.
Yeah. Agreed.
So we actually have a submission, and this is from Jenny Hill. As you know, the Dogman appears the 7th year of every decade. So there's this whole thing surrounding the Michigan Dogman that's like very cicada-like, in that the Dogman comes back on the 7th year of every decade. But that's very local, like that's not typically part of the legend, but that's part of the legend in some places. But it's not like the Nain Rouge, which we'll be talking about in a second, that has very specific timing. She says, my ex-brother-in-law was a Lake County Sheriff's deputy back in 1987. He came over the weekend and took us to a cabin near Luther that had been attacked by an animal. This cabin was actually a 2-story house that was back on a dirt road. It was surrounded by deep woods with no other houses nearby. When we arrived, it was turning dusk. At the rear of the house was a large picture window that had no curtains, so the inside of the house was clearly visible. The window faced the woods. Whatever animal had attacked the house had attempted to gain entry through that picture window. Dried blood and saliva were dripping down the length of the window as if it had tried to chew its way in.
Yikes.
This was up about 7 feet high. The framing around the window had deep punctures where it had tried to chew through the wood. Several pieces of the frame had been torn from the window. The animal had made a tour around the outside of the house, biting and tearing off pieces of wood. There was an aluminum screen door at the front of the house that had puncture holes right through where the animal had attempted to rip it off its hinges. Blood and hair were stuck to the door. When the samples of the hair and blood were tested, it was determined that it was a dog that had attempted to get in the cabin. It must have thought that there were people inside because there was a light on in the house and the radio was playing. When they reported the incident to the police, the owners had indicated that they had did this to deter break-ins. Whatever it was going to break in and get whoever was inside.
Yikes.
So what's interesting about this is that the hair was tested because originally I'm like 7 feet tall. This is a bear. This is a bear standing on its hind legs.
Yeah.
But they tested the hair and it was that of some type of dog. So I thought that was really interesting. So thank you so much for sending that in to us.
If it was a dog, how was it up 7 feet?
Exactly.
Off the ground?
I mean,
no
have
sense.
you ever seen an Irish wolfhound? Jesus.
There is not
7
wild
feet.
Irish wolfhounds in the northwestern lower peninsula of Michigan.
I feel
No.
like even if the largest dog I've ever seen in my entire life was on its hind legs, like leaning against a building, it still wouldn't be able to reach
You
its
have never
jaws up
seen
some-
a big dog, then.
A Great Dane would be tall enough, but there's no way that there's just a Great Dane chilling trying to get in this cabin. That's wild.
I also feel like if there was a creature that could reach 7 feet long, it would have got in the cabin, right?
Well, it's still an animal and doesn't have opposable thumbs.
I thought it was a man. A wolf man.
It is a wolf man, but allegedly,
If it was that big, couldn't it have just busted through the window?
that's what surprises me.
That's what I'm saying. If it really wanted to get in, I feel like it could get in. I think that was a setup. They did it for press. Moving on.
There's no press to be got. She was a little kid. It was this dude's cabin in the woods.
Let's
what
go
is
there.
The press?
And we are on scene.
What are you worried about? Like
The conspiracy.
I was gonna say like the Coatmish Conqueror, but I don't think Coatmish has a freaking newspaper. I don't think I've ever seen one.
This is a conspiracy to besmirch Michigan Dogman's good name.
Like the music mushroom reporter. I really want to know about local papers now up there. I'm curious.
I'm surprised you don't write one for your papa.
Why would I do that?
It sounds like your dream.
What would I have to say? I would just talk about the Michigan Dog Man. Like
Exactly. You're not reporting like real news. You're making up fun
Oh.
shit.
It's not like Jerry sold his tractor.
No.
That's
not the
what
newspaper
I
you're
assume.
running.
Well, no, of course not. I'm just saying that's what I picture. All right, Michael, why don't you tell us about some other Michigan cryptids?
Okay, let us start with Pressy, or not to be confused with Bessie of Lake Erie, but Pressy is said to be a serpent living in Lake Superior. Over the years, you have been many sightings of Pressy, who has been described as a snake-like creature with humps that rise above the surface of the water. Pressy was first seen in 1894 off the coast of Whitefish Point. She has been spotted near Pictured Rocks, off Sugar Island, and near Point Iroquois as recently as 1981. The best sighting was in 1977. A hiker named Randy Braun spotted a creature in the water by the Porcupine Mountains, near the mouth of the Presque Isle River in Lake Superior, which is how Pressy got her name. Randy was actually able to get a picture of the fabled creature.
Pressy interests me just because all Loch Ness-like creatures interest me, and I would be really curious to know first sightings of Loch Ness, the first sightings of, like, all of these different water creatures and how close they are to each other.
Yeah. How do we know that she's a she?
I was just gonna say, why are they all always girls?
It's
This
like a
particular
car.
brand.
It is.
It's like a car. Cars are usually girls in, like, a weird, endearing, women are objects kind of way.
But, like,
Interesting.
Bessie and Nessie and Pressy are girls, but then you got Mothman and Michigan Dogman. Why is there a gender divide in cryptids? Justice for non-binary cryptids.
Well, it's like Latin languages, like French.
This table is a girl. This
Right.
lake monster is a girl, by grammar's sake.
Well, I'm glad we had this talk.
More representation for the non-binary and agender cryptids out there.
I feel like, in general, if something looks like a man from afar, that cryptid then becomes whatever man.
But if it looks like a dinosaur, it becomes a woman?
No, I just mean like goat man, goat whatever. If it looks like a person, it usually becomes man. But then, if it's some type of other creature, it usually gets a female pronoun for some reason. Also, probably because Nessie has a female pronoun,
Yes.
and this is definitely Nessie-esque, and probably based off Nessie, because
Yes.
it's Pressy, and there's Bessie.
We should research why Nessie is a girl.
Very, very easy for things to be, like, interpreted as sea monsters when there are things that are giant living in these huge lakes. Like, there is 7 to 8 feet sturgeons living in there. You know, I mean,
Jesus Christ.
it's quite
Yeah, we
possible
have
to
really
confuse.
creepy, gross sturgeons.
Yeah, you can get eaten whole by a sturgeon in one of these lakes. This is not weird.
I can't if I don't go in the water.
Yeah.
But I also generally tend to believe in anything cryptoid-like that is associated with water because it's so unexplored. We have no idea what's down there. Like, we have no idea.
There's dozens upon dozens of shipwrecks in the Great Lakes that we're only now finding because of, like, water camera technology.
Mm-hmm.
Places that before they weren't very accessible, easy for us to tell anything was even there to begin with, because there's parts of the Great Lakes that are ridiculously deep.
Mm-hmm.
I do not trust the ocean.
Especially Lake Superior.
Space is nothing compared to the ocean.
Wait, really quickly, I just want to insert the depths of the Great Lakes. So Lake Superior has an average depth of 483 feet, which is where Pressy comes from. Lake Michigan, it's 279 feet. Lake Huron, the average is 195. And Erie is by far the shallowest, with 62 feet. And then Lake Ontario, which is 283 feet. So the Great Lakes, but especially Lake Superior.
Yeah, it's
483 feet being its
average.
And its deepest point is 1,333 feet deep. So that's insanity.
Yeah, that's deep.
That's deep, bruh.
That's deep.
Do not cut that.
I'll keep it. All right, Mikey, tell us about the Nain Rouge.
Nain Rouge means red dwarf in French, and it is a goblin-like creature. In 1883, Marie Caroline Watson Hamlin wrote a book called Legends Le Détroit, in which she reported a fortune teller had warned Detroit's founder, Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac, of a future encounter he would have with the Nain Rouge, and not to anger the creature. Instead of approaching the creature with humility, he instead hit the Nain Rouge and found himself cursed. Hamlin had even described the Nain Rouge as such. Very red in the face, with a bright glistening eye, instead of burning, it froze. Instead of possessing depth, emitted a cold gleam like the reflection from a polished surface, bewildering and dazzling all who came within its focus. And with a grinning mouth displaying sharp, pointed teeth, completed his strange face. Some believe the Nain Rouge to be evil, but instead he is an omen or even the catalyst for dire events themselves. He is said to have appeared before many disasters, such as in 1763, before the Battle of the Bloody Run, in 1805, before a fire that burned most of the city, in 1967 before the Detroit riots, and in 1976 before a crippling snowstorm. In 2010, a parade was founded called Marche de Nain Rouge. It's held in Midtown Detroit on the spring equinox, where Detroiters dress in masks and march in order to banish the Nain Rouge from the city for another year. I have been to this before.
Yeah, me too.
It is very much a glorified St. Patrick's Day. We're going to drink until we're wasted in the middle of the street.
Yeah, but everyone is wearing, like, anonymous masks and demon masks and, like, really intense cosplays and really intricate, like, masquerade masks. It's fun.
Yes, it's a lot of fun. Modern scholars have suggested that today's conception of the name Rouge may be mingled with the mythical Native American trickster Nanabozo.
I think that's how it's pronounced, but also we're probably butchering it. Because that's what we do.
That's our thing. So not to go back to Pokemon, but this reminds me a lot of the Pokemon Absol, who's associated with, like, bad events and disasters, but he's just trying to warn people, like, get the fuck out of the way.
100%.
Well, that's like Mothman. Like, Mothman was seen as, like, this bad omen, but at first it was like, is Mothman making these things happen?
It's not. They're just trying to save us. Absol, Mothman, this French goblin.
These are the kinds of legends and folklore and things that I really love that have a lot of really rich, deep history. Like, this book dates back to the 1800s, and the whole story, like, it involves Detroit's founder, and Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac. He died in obscurity and pretty much penniless, and he then became this huge figurehead, and even Cadillac, the car company, is named after him. Cadillac, Michigan is named after him. So he ended up becoming this huge figure, but during his life, he suffered under this, you know, alleged curse.
Sucks to be him. Maybe instead of hitting it, you should approach it with humility.
Yeah. I feel like most stories, it's also on its own. Aside from the cryptid factor, aside from any of that, it's really just a story with a moral. Don't be a dick, is that moral.
Aesop's Cryptids.
True.
From the words of Will Wheaton, don't be a dick.
I know every time that a fortune teller warns me of something, I always do the exact opposite.
I don't think I would. I think that if a fortune teller, I definitely, in this circumstance, wouldn't just hit some little goblin creature. And not only that, but I always picture Willow, like the
From
character
Buffy?
Willow. No, the character Willow, like from the movie Willow, like Professor Flitwick from Harry Potter. He was in a movie called Willow. Wow, you guys are garbage. Both of you go Google Willow.
Okay.
Can we go back to Buffy?
Okay, I don't like to be called garbage. I prefer trash. And for the record,
I accept both terms. I have reclaimed garbage.
The thing with Michigan cryptids is there are so many of them. There's like the melon heads that are up by like Sugatuck. Even Ann Arbor, this giant city with a giant college, U of M, has the Ann Arbor fairy doors, where people in the community have all these fairy doors around their houses so that the fairies can use the doors.
Everyone has fairy doors. Is there a big Irish or Scottish community in Ann Arbor?
There's a big Irish and Scottish community everywhere here. I don't know if it's Ann Arbor specific. Let's see.
But fuck it, everyone has fairy doors. There are fairy doors at my sister's work.
Yeah, but no, that's now. I'm talking, they've been doing this for dozens of years. Like, this is something that's been happening for a long time.
Oh, yeah, the fairy doors have been a thing in Ann Arbor since 1993.
Yeah. So we're literally talking about, like, 20 years of fairy doors.
So long-lasting.
20 years when fairy doors have just, and like fairy houses and stuff have just got popular 5 years ago. That's a pretty big difference.
It's multiple, like it's everywhere. Like there's multiple houses.
No, this sort of tradition goes back to the Irish. This is not a modern,
Right.
It's got a
I know.
renaissance, but...
No, I'm just saying that it's still very popular and alive in Ann Arbor.
Mhm.
It's not just
Before this
at a
particular
Renaissance festival. Yeah, it's not like at a Renaissance festival or this or that. It's like the community itself very much feeds into it still.
They describe it as a cult following in Ann Arbor. It's a thing.
You can't see me, but I'm rolling my eyes. Ann Arbor does not have the capital on ferry doors.
Oh, no, not at all. Even the university has fairy doors. That's the messed up part. Oh, like in the houses of the computer science and engineering division, they have fairy doors. Even ATM vestibules, some of them have fairy doors. And that's strange. I don't know why the fairies need to go through doors, the ATM vestibules, but...
They need that money!
Oh no, even the fairies have capitalism.
Oh no! Not the fairies!
You're better than those fairies, just eat us.
Alright, Chip, tell us about your local cryptid.
So, the cryptid in Arizona that I've heard of is the Mogollon monster. I don't know if that's the real way you would pronounce it in Native American, but that's how we pronounce it in Arizona as white people. It's Mogollon, but it's Mogollon. The Mogollon Rim and the Mogollon monster. The Mogollon monster is said to be 7 feet tall, in human strength. It's basically Bigfoot, okay? Maybe it has red eyes or whatever, but it's just Arizona Bigfoot.
Discount off-brand ass Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe it has slightly less hair since it's in the desert? Or it's a lighter color?
It varies from white to black to reddish brown. It's said that its hair is long.
Oh.
And if it's up here at the Mogollon Rim, it's up at the Mogollon Rim, which is northern Arizona, which is colder. It's a desert. It's a high desert. Thank you very much.
Gotcha.
Desert is defined by rainfall. Anyway, yeah, it can get colder, so it can be just as hairy as Bigfoot. And it's said to smell of dead fish and other decaying materials. But what else would you smell like if you were living in the woods and killing for sport, Shia LaBeouf?
Also, that would, I assume, be a food source.
Yeah.
If it's not out just eating people all the time,
Right.
then it probably eats fish.
Right. The way I've heard of it, it's just a chill Bigfoot. It's not out here attacking anyone. Not that Bigfoot's attacking anyone. But he's just... Mogollon monster's doing his thing. I don't know why it's male all of a sudden. I am also part of the gender problem. The first documented report that we know of was an article in the Arizona Republican in 1903 where the monster was described with long white hair and matted beard that reached to his knees. It wore no clothing, and upon his talon-like fingers were claws at least 2 inches long. But of course that just sounds like a crazy guy who hasn't cut his hair in a while because he got trapped in the mines.
Mountain men.
He was described as having a coat of gray hair that nearly covered his body, with here and there a spot of dirty skin showing. He also said that he saw the monster drinking the blood of 2 cougars when he saw the creature near the Grand Canyon.
I stand the Mogollon monster. If he took down 2 cougars, he's a boss and should be the king of the cryptids.
It's very strange to see 2 cougars together in the same place. Like, they're not...
You just don't go to the same bars I go to.
Ayo!
And I hope...
So we do have a submission about my good old Mogollon monster from, I'm sorry I'm butchering your name, Rouge. It's your Reddit name, it's fine. It's probably not your birth name. Rouge.
You assume.
I am assuming. Rouge tells us, honestly, he's not too interesting. Chip says, I agree. He's just related to Bigfoot and the Yeti. They're all the same species, just drastically adapted to their biomes. The monster isn't destructive or dangerous, he's just reclusive. Truth be told, I've not had more than a couple interactions with him, but if you'd like, I'll give you what I know. The first time I saw him, I was out towards Knoll Lake on the rim. The Mogollon Rim. That's what we only have the one rim. That was me. This is Chips.
Good to know. I would argue that the Grand Canyon is just one giant rim, and I don't understand, but You do you, boo-boo.
I don't claim Arizona as my birthland.
I've just lived here for decades.
It's not my fault.
And have chosen to stay here as an adult. Please continue.
I was hiking along the top of the rim, and had been throwing flat stones off the rim, and was just kneeling to grab another rock, when I glanced to the north side of the road and saw a huge guy duck away, just beaten feet through the woods. But I couldn't keep sight of him, and looked back to the tree where he had been hiding behind, and realized his shoulders had to have been more than 3 feet over mine, where he'd been leaning on the tree. Another time, I was way far off him in the Rattlesnake Quiet. I don't even know where that is. Oh, it's just off to the east of the 17. Another time, I was way far off of him in the Rattlesnake Quiet, just off to the east of the 17, and I saw him just strolling off in the distance down to the valley bottom. And that's all I know of him. Harmless, but skittish and antisocial.
So, how do you feel? So, Chip has decided that the Mogollon monster is chill. Do you know anybody near you that has ever, does everyone know about the Mogollon monster? What's the deal?
I wouldn't say ever. I think it's more like the, oh yeah, I heard that story sort of thing, not like...
Right, well that's what Michigan Dogman is. It's not, it's
yeah,
kind
we
of
don't
like...
have, it's not a parade like Nain Rouge.
You have parades for some of your cryptids.
That's true. It's like my sister's cousin was out hunting and he said he saw the Michigan Dogman, but it's not like everyone doesn't have a story, but somebody's heard of somebody that heard somebody else or whatever.
It's more less than that than even like my cousin's brother's dog had an encounter. It's just like, oh yeah, I heard someone talking about that just as a story. We don't worship the ground he walks on.
Well, that's boring.
Sorry. He's just a hairy miner man.
I'm one of those people that believe in most cryptoids. If there's a story about it, I believe in it. I mean, I don't know. I'm just gullible like that, I guess. But this seems like it's just described as someone who may just wanted to get lost in the wilderness.
And drink the blood of 2 cougars.
That part's weird. But the description could be a guy wearing a fur coat, living in the wild.
It's like we could see a bit of skin.
Right.
Ooh.
Love
we
it.
could see a little bit of skin on that Mogollon monster.
Work.
I mean, he sounds hot to me. Minus the smell. I don't know.
Ooh.
The dead fish smell.
That would be rough.
So, do you have any other local cryptids, Chip?
I mean, I haven't particularly heard of this one. Also, there's the Chupacabra, but that's fairly common. He's local to the southwest. Everyone's got a Chupacabra. That's your mainstream kind of cryptid. I'm more into the underground scene. So, besides the common cryptids, there's also supposedly the Rake.
Sounds dastardly and hot.
You may think he's hot, but the Rake is a creature that is approximately 9 feet tall and eats human flesh. He gives off a high-pitched scream and has 2-inch nails. Didn't the Mogollon monster also have 2-inch nails? Hold on. At least 2-inch long claws. The uniting feature of all Arizona cryptids, including El Chupacabra.
2-inch nails.
So, the Mogollon monster is more just a guy who lives in the woods, which is very common up in northern Arizona. While the Rake is more like Gollum, is like have you seen The Descent?
I feel like I did, but I also feel like it was 2006. Would that be a good approximation of when that movie came out?
I have no idea, because I saw it in, 2012.
Of course you did.
Yeah, it's more like Gollum, he's all hairless and skin shriveled, and...
But he's 9 feet tall.
Yeah, but big Gollum.
He's a giant Gollum.
So what is this supposed to look like? Is it skin? Does it have fur?
Also, can we just say #justice for Smeagol? Because his name is Smeagol.
Well, I wasn't talking about Smeagol, I was talking about Gollum, because the Rake is not very nice.
Okay.
But justice for Smeagol, yes. Well, I mean, he murdered Deagle, so, his cousin.
Deagle tried to get that ring, though.
It was his birthday.
It was his birthday.
And he wants it. That rim.
He does want it.
Precious. My precious.
You did such a good job. Andy Serkis, that you?
I do a good Stitch and a good Pikachu too, but those are my only three.
The man of 1,000 voices.
What a repertoire. Better get that voice acting money. You go into audition. They're like, why are you doing Stitch's voice? This is for a prince.
So, about the Rake. Sightings and encounters with the Rake have been allegedly, hey, they used our word. Sightings and encounters with the Rake have allegedly been reported since the 1800s. Several diary and journal entries have been found which documented the horrifying attacks of the creature. At least one person who committed suicide in the 1960s left a suicide note that mentioned the monster.
What?
What?
That's crazy. Seriously?
What do you mean? Like, mention it how? Like, this is the Rake's fault.
If you would...
Was it, like, haunting it?
The Rake is a fugly slut. Do not trust him.
The Rake is a fugly slut. Do not trust him. How do you come up with that on the fly? Oh, that's genius.
I am full of useless quotes. I love me a Mean Girls reference. I want to know word for word.
Yeah.
WTF, this suicide note says, this sounds like bullshit.
A suicide note, 1964. Quote, as I prepare to take my life, I feel it necessary to assuage any guilt or pain I have introduced through this act. It is not the fault of anyone other than him. For once I awoke and felt his presence. And once I awoke and saw his form. Once again I awoke and heard his voice, and looked into his eyes. I cannot sleep without fear of what I might next awake to. I cannot ever wake. Goodbye. Found in the same wooden box were 2 empty envelopes addressed to William and Rose, and 1 loose personal letter with no envelope that read, Dearest Linny, I have prayed for you. He spoke your name.
What?
This is wild. This isn't even like cryptids normally, like cryptid stories go. This is normally how like paranormal ghosts.
Yeah. But did you
go.
see the picture of this thing?
Not.
Oh, no, you don't want to see it. No.
I do.
No, you don't. Okay. Oh, God. That thing is creepy.
See it? Shoot it!
That is the thing nightmares are made out of.
Oh, I see. I see the one Chip put in the dock. Yeah. Okay, listen. The Rake is my new favorite cryptid. First of all, he looks creepy AF. Like, he's creepy. And no fur, no whatever. Even though the panned out picture does look pretty photoshopped.
2 different panned out ones. One of them must be photoshopped, which makes me think the other one is also photoshopped.
Yeah.
But I have a couple more quotes to read that I found separate from you.
Yes, please do, because the suicide note got me.
A journal entry, translated from Spanish, from 1880. Quote, I have experienced the greatest terror. I have experienced the greatest terror. I have experienced the greatest terror. I see his eyes when I close mine. They are hollow, black. They saw me and pierced me. His wet hand. I will not sleep. His voice, unintelligible text. End quote.
Welp?
One more. A mariner's log from 1691. He came to me in my sleep. From the foot of my bed I felt a sensation. He took everything. We must return to England. We shall not return here again at the request of the Rake.
Oh, he flat out said the Rake.
I mean, where else would that name...
How would he have known that was the name of it?
But that's the thing, too. Like, the Rake is also something that you might have called the pirate, because a lot of people were called rakes when they, got into mischief and defiled women, or if they stole, or if they, were outside of the law, you would say, oh, he's a rake. So, saying the Rake, it could mean a pirate, it could mean a lot of people. However, it's still very interesting.
Alright, so if there are any directors out there or independent filmmakers, this is a good thing to pick up. Like, I'm sorry.
Agree.
I think it would make an awesome horror film.
I think that it would make an awesome horror film, and then they would ruin it with the CGI of the Rake.
You think
But
so?
Andy Serkis.
Yes.
Snoke and Smeagol.
If they can get Andy Serkis to live action do it and then do the CGI, that would work. But I feel like it would be very difficult to CGI it without it looking super washed out and super garbage.
Not to burst our own bubbles, but for this, it's not really a local cryptid. One website has it for Prescott, but most of the websites I've found is talking about New York. So, Prescott, why you stealing the rake from New York?
But also, you are allegedly a New Yorker.
I am the rake.
So you finally got what you wanted. I'm not
I'm just
Arizona
pointing it out because that last one was
birthland.
a mariner's log from 1691. There weren't a lot of mariners in Arizona in 1691.
Yeah, there was zero. There was zero. First of all, there's no water.
We have 2 natural lakes in the entirety of the state.
Lake Mary disappears.
Yeah, but that's not a natural lake. It does disappear.
Very distinctly remember Lake Mary not being there, and then it monsooning, and Lake Mary starting to be there, and I was like,
The real cryptid of Arizona is Lake Mary, who disappears and reappears at a whim. Do not anger her.
The suicide note in the journal entry, which was translated from Spanish, though, was very much Arizona-born.
Most of the sites talk about this in relation to New York. So, and once found in Idaho. He gets around.
What? Cryptids.
And our sources are not amazing websites, so...
I mean, it's very difficult unless it's Bigfoot or a very, very mainstream cryptid to get a source that's the Smithsonian.
I wasn't looking for the Smithsonian, I was just hoping for not a live journal.
Yeah. Oh, a live journal, definitely no.
Technically a blog spot, not a live journal. If any of you know the Rake, please let us know where you met him.
I hope nobody has met that.
I would piss my pants.
Well, it turns out you would commit suicide because it's that horrifying.
I know, I would be I just want to shake your hand. I mean, I've heard of cryptids terrorizing and murdering people, but making them leave a suicide note and not even touching them? Dude, boss.
Please don't murder me. I choose not to look into your eyes.
So there was also, again, sorry about our sources, but there is a Fox News article about the Rake, and it says that a bizarre video had gone viral claiming to show a 6-foot eerie faceless creature. They also described him as similar to Gollum. Thanks for nothing.
Yeah, this one's talking about Canada and New York. See, Arizona. Prescott, stop stealing cryptids for your advertising. We have our own cryptids. Mogollon Monster is a bro. We don't need to bring the Rake in to murder us all.
Did you watch the video, Mo?
I'm trying to.
I mean, this moose is very close to the edge of the road. And this creature just seems to be moving back and forth.
If there's any creature that could protect itself from the Rake, it is a moose.
Well, the moose is not even facing it.
Yeah, it's so unthreatened by...
Well, it just seems to be that the creature supposedly that's moving there, it's repetitive moving. It's a move forward, move back thing, as if it's...
It looks like
my video won't play,
Gollum. But... It is not alive.
It also looks like it's placed there, though, and it's repetitive. It's on a loop. You know what I mean?
The video is looped or its movement is looped?
The movement is looped. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed this look at our local cryptids, and we'll be doing some kind of episode like this in the future. If you want to be featured on that episode, make sure you send your tips to our email address or call our tip line at 313-355-3411. Also, like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we love interacting with all of you, so please send us anything. We'd love to hear from you. That's all until next time. I'm Mo.
I'm Chip.
And I'm Mikey.
Keep searching for the deep dark truth. I just didn't want Chip to say it.
This is even better. I got you so easily. It's been 5 episodes.
You just listened to the Deep Dark Truth Podcast. See you next time. And remember, Your local cryptids want to meet you.